God bless you. It's great to connect with you on architecture. Looking at Ecclesiastes chapter 5. Chapter 5 is looking at, I would say, it's not something that is strange to us because if we are alive at all, we are very aware of what is happening around us. We are very much a part of the environment. We are part of the community. We're a part of the reality in which we are in. We can't live outside of this reality. We're not set up for that. That's not how God meant things to be. Man is supposed to be in charge. Obviously, man is not. And I say that because of what took place in the garden. And it's in one particular garden I'm talking about, not your backyard or not a garden of somebody else's, or you're visiting a garden that is set up for people to have pleasure. No, it's the Garden of Eden I'm talking about. And what happened on that fateful day, faithful, because it's faithful because it has affected humanity, and not only human beings, but it's affected creation on all disobedient. This particular chapter looks at and addresses uh, how we should face the problems in our life, and also we should be able to guard our steps, to guard our lives. That, my friends, is very important. We need to be able to guard our lives because according to the gospel, and I don't do it regularly in the sense of going into the New Testament and drawing out particular verses. It's I wouldn't say it's easy to do. I purposefully not tried to do it, and it is difficult. It's very difficult because the scriptures are all intertwined and the scriptures support each other. You may be able to do it, yes, and I will leave that for you to do as we go through the scripture and as I do what I do. But I try not to do it, and I have reason for that. I just want to concentrate particularly on what we are doing. But in St. John, in the book of St. John, and in chapter 10 in particular, and I will allow, I'm not going to tell you the verse because you need to know the scriptures for yourself and read the chapter, these particular chapters. But in the book of St. John, and in particular chapter 10 of that particular book, we are told that the thief cometh not but to steal and to kill and to destroy. So all that is going on here, in particular in Ecclesiastes, which we know it is Solomon, the preacher, Solomon, the teacher. We know that Solomon, and let us stay in the reality in which he was in, he is and was known as the wisest. If we brought him into our reality, into our time, 2026 in particular, would he would he be classed as the wisest man in the world? I would say so. Because why would I say that? Because it was God given. Even though yes, there were faults and failures with him, and he failed. He did fail, and I think a lot of what we are reading and have read in the past. Many of you have read Ecclesiastes. You've read Song of Solomon, which you've done already, and you have probably seen much more than what I'm able to talk about. And you have probably preached, you've probably taught, you've used the scriptures in particular. Let me use Ecclesiastes. We haven't done Proverbs as yet. I haven't mentioned that. I want to mention too much of that. But then again, you know that Proverbs Again, Solomon had a lot to do with that. Songs of Solomon had a lot to do with that. We've done that already, but even revisit that, even though that's on a particular different subject matter where it was more or less about marriage, the marriage relationship, and love, and all of that. What Solomon wants to do with that. Well, at the same time, we could probably see that a lot of what he shared is probably way down as he got older. That's my assumption. A lot of what he shared, the wisdom which he shared, because we are told that he studied. We are told he himself said that he studied everything, anything that he could get his hands, anything that his eyes could see. There was nothing, not only for his flesh, but also for his mind, I think, was withheld from him. He studied it. He made sure he knew. He makes sure he experienced everything. So when it comes to guarding steps and being able to face the problems of life, I believe that Solomon is addressing this from the aspect of having already gone through it. He's probably a little older than we think. I think he's relatively not able to do what he used to do as a younger man, and he's seeing now, he's experienced that anything that he does is vanity. Anything that he has done which has taken him away from God is vanity, and that could be anything at all. And we've touched on a few areas, and it's a lot of information here, really. It's a lot of information. But in chapter 5, he's addressing the problems that we face, life's problems. He's also sharing his wisdom that we should guard against several things. We've already looked at guarding against false and insecure or insincere worship. We've done that. That was the first one within the fifth chapter of Ecclesiastes. In this session, we're looking at guarding against oppression and injustices. We need to do that. We need to guard. We need to guard against oppression. We need to guard against injustice, whether it is within society, within the church, within our families, anywhere we are, we must guard. We must be aware and guard ourselves and help others not to oppress or to be a tool of injustice. There are two other areas which we will be looking at within the fifth chapter of Ecclesiastes, which is the one after this one will be to guard against covetousness and the love of money, which that's a terrible, even in our world today. If there's anything that is destroying government, if there's anything that is destroying family, if there's anything that is destroying our societies, the world over, it is covetousness and the love of money. And the last section in this particular chapter of Ecclesiastes, chapter 5, is that we must guard the wonderful gift of God, life that He has given us. We must guard that, but there are things that we must guard against. Don't guard against life. God has given us a wonderful gift, and every day that we live, every moment that we have to enjoy the reality that is around us. My friend, we must give God glory. We must give Him praise. We must be appreciative of His grace and of His mercy that He has allowed us to experience. So let's look at verses 8 and 9 of chapter 5. I'm going to read those two particular verses of scripture, reading from the King James Version as well as from the Jewish text. So let's read quickly. I don't really spend too much time with you, not that I don't want to, But as we have mentioned every now and again, the the attention span of individuals, like myself also, take advantage of it, but sometimes limited to what it is because of the thing that we have to do. So I hope to be a blessing and a tool of encouragement to you today. If thou seest the oppression of the poor and violent perverting of judgment and justice in a province, marvel not at the matter, for he that is higher than the highest regarded, and they be higher than they. Verse 9. Moreover, the profit of the earth is for all. The king himself is served by the field. Let's read that from the Jewish text, the same two verses 8 and 9 of Ecclesiastes chapter 5. And he says here, if you see the poor oppressed, rights violated, and justice perverted in the province, don't be surprised, for a high official has one higher watching him, and there are others above them. But the greatest advantage to the country is when the king makes himself a servant to the land. Can I read it again? Because I think there's a lot of valuable nuggets here, and I can't talk on each one. I'm sure that you'll notice, and you need to think about it. Think about it even for yourself. Because unless we make the changes that we need to make on where we are, then we can't really make the effects as effective or real if we don't start doing something for ourselves. If you see the poor oppressed, rights violated, and justice perverted in the province, don't be surprised. For a high official has one higher watching him, and there are others above them. But the greatest advantage to the country is when the king makes himself a servant to the land. Now, who better to say that than Solomon himself? King over God's people, king over the children of Israel, over Israel. A very wise man, knowledgeable man, a man of great understanding. But he was not only of those three, he was also very and extremely rich, extremely, um, extremely rich. And uh, yes, he himself may have oppressed. He may himself may have violated and perverted the court of justice. We know him to be a wise man. We know him to be a man of justice. Even a perfect example was, and I'm sure, well, you know very well. You know, we may forget. We don't readily remember these things, but we have to think about the man who gave the mother of the child, of the living child, to receive her child, and the child who died, who tried to receive the living child as her own. What great wisdom that was! What great wisdom at the time. Is there anything that we could think in our day, in this year, right now, whichever year we may be in? And I'm hoping that this would last for, if the Lord tarries, for many a year. But there are, I think that there are two thoughts that probably we should think about and have in our mind. But we must remember that teacher here, the preacher, Solomon, in effect, he's advising us, he's advising those who were before him. He's written this, this has been written for us, but let us say that while he lived, he may have had an audience of hundreds, thousands, or a few in his palace, in a room, in an auditorium. We don't know, but he more or less, I believe, he may have spoken to those around him to guard against the problems and the entrapments of life. Yeah. And in the previous chapter, Solomon, the king, the teacher, the preacher, exposes the problems of oppression. You read chapter 4 again. Go back to that if you need to. If you've forgotten anything, don't be afraid to say if you've forgotten. We're, we're not all brilliant. I'm probably the least of all brilliant individuals. Sometimes I have to, read and reread previous chapters so that I can remember easily. And some people have a photographic memory that they just have to see it once, and that is it. So go back and read it if you may. But he looks at oppression. He looks at oppression and injustice again in these two verses, especially in verse 8. The king's counsel here with regard to political corruption is surprising, I would say. Corruption and oppression exist in politics and government. And even today, I don't know if you are an individual that is involved in politics. If you are involved in politics, if you are a part of a government that is in power now, there's nothing wrong with that. I think everyone should be involved and trying to make good the situations of life and the life of others. So there's nothing wrong. What is wrong is when we oppress others and we, knowing the right, we then do the injustice. I think that is, well, not that I think, I believe that that is wrong. We should not at all be a part or take part in any type of corruption, neither should we deal unjustly with those who are around us. So the teacher here is saying that corruption and oppression exist in politics and government, and even within the ranks of both elected officials and bureaucrats, those who are appointed and hired. But let's just briefly just mention 2 points here. One, that each level of government has corrupt officials who seek to squeeze revenue out of those under them. And two, the ruler himself stands at the head of this corrupt system. And if the ruler, if the king, if the queen, if necessary, the president, the prime minister, we've got to remember that if they are the head, if they, if whatever political system may be enforced, and they are aware of the injustices, the corruption or the oppression that is happening, if they don't do anything about it, they are culpable. They may not, to some extent, be the ones doing it, but if they are aware and they do nothing, then they are just as guilty as those who are actually doing what they're doing. Once we are aware of what is taking place and it is corruption and oppressive, we must eradicate it or address it. It must be addressed. And the wise man here, the teacher, the preacher of righteousness. What did he say in verse 8? He says, if you see the poor oppressed, rights violated, and justice perverted in the province, don't be surprised, he says, for a high official has one higher watching him, and there are others watching above them. So, there is always accountability. Accountability is always in place, always. Now, it all depends on whether they are in agreement with what is being done or not. But there is always accountability. And you and I, as people of God, as children of God, as allowing the word of God, if God is within us, God is living within us. I mean, our societies today, they are falling apart. And even though our leaders may profess that they are Christian, they may profess to be living a life of righteousness and knowing the Lord Jesus Christ. But my friend, the fruit, by their fruit, and when I say that, I mean sometimes their actions is, you know, the things that they do, the things that we see that is being produced, whether it's a day later, a week, a month, a year later, it, you know, we can see that Christ really is nowhere a part of their life, because a man, a woman, an individual who has the Lord in their life, they would not at all take part and they would allow these things. They would, there's no way they would allow these things and the things that happen in society. There is so much oppression and the corruption in our world, the corruption in our world, the oppression that is going on in our world. And let us say, okay, even if you don't want to think about other nations or far afield or in other places, just look in your own environment, look in your own community, even within your own local, in many countries or in many situations, they have areas such as local government or in the local township, in the local communities. Even sometimes at times corruption is happening there. It may be small, but multiply that many times over, and it's happening in the city. It's happening in the country. Corruption is rife, but the preacher, the teacher, the wise man Solomon here is saying that we must guard ourselves against oppression and injustice. We must guard ourselves. Verse 9 says, moreover, the profit of the earth is for all the king himself who serves by the field. But the greatest advantage of the country is when the king makes himself a servant to the land. And Solomon, again, who is best to talk about that more than Solomon himself? Because he was king. Solomon himself, because he was ruler over God's people. Very wise man, very knowledgeable individual. Studied both the arts and the sciences, two areas in our world today that professors and doctors, people who have studied well, they will say that there are two areas of study in our world today: the arts and the sciences. So Solomon here was one who dabbled in both areas, and he was knowledgeable. He was a man of great understanding. And here, even if we were going to concentrate on this for a day, for 2 days, a week, a month, you can hear the wisdom of God. You can hear the wisdom of Solomon. You can begin to understand the understanding prowess which he possessed when it came to a king ruling amongst his people. And I believe that he wants to share that with you, with me, with us. And if we would only just give ourselves to the king, if we would only just humble ourselves to God. It is all about God, humbling ourselves. Life is fleeting. Knowledge fails. Everything about us, about humanity and understanding the things of life, understanding the things, the environment in which we're in, as it stands right now, fails. And we've done a few areas addressing failure in life. But there is one thing that will never ever fail, and that is God. That is understanding. That is giving ourselves to God. Seeing that if we would just commit and just hand things over, whatever it is that we have. Solomon learned the hard way, but then he's sharing with us. So may God bless you. Just think more about what it is that's going on in our world. It could be happening in our own family, sad to say. It starts really among families, doesn't it? A perfect family, well, is there one? A godly family, let me use that. A godly family will bring uh, godliness to the community and to the world in which they live. A loving family brings love into the world, into the community, and the world and the community, if I can say that, their little world there prospers because of the love that is within the family. A divided family brings division in the community. It affects the whole area in which they're in. A divided family cannot bring unity. Divided family cannot bring love. Divided family cannot bring unity. And so many times do we see people who are struggling, people who are in trouble, people who bring disaster. All that's around them is disaster. Yet when they stand before people, they show and they try to um, to show as if, well, they're bringing love, they're bringing unity. How can they bring unity if they don't know what unity looks like? Because unity is not with them. How can a person love and show love to someone when, even amongst their own family, even with themselves, they don't love anybody? How can they? It's impossible. It's virtually impossible. So we need to guard ourselves against it. And in this instance, it's oppression. In this instance, we must guard ourselves against injustice. In the session before, we have to guard ourselves against false and insincere worship. We have to. How can we, just touching on that a bit, how can we bring sincere worship into the life of others, or show others, or whatever it is that we need to do, but yet we're not sincere in our worship to God? How can we do that? How can we? Anyway, God bless you. Just think again, meditate on these things. Meditate on these things. Guard yourself. Guard yourself. Guard yourself. I can't repeat that too many times. We need to guard ourselves against the things that the enemy would want to bring. We cannot think that we can allow all things just to enter our lives and bring, bring blessing. No, it will not. We need to be careful what we allow to get too near to us. We have to be sensitive to righteousness and to unrighteousness. Once we know that it is unrighteous, that is what we need to guard ourselves against. But when righteousness is around us and we see it, that is what we must bring close to us. Why? Because righteousness is the righteousness of God. That is what we need to bring nigh unto us. That's what we need to live in and by, the righteousness of God. God bless you. Have a great day. Enjoy yourself for the day, and let the Lord continue to speak and to address your life as you live.